boy. You're going to sleep.
UMAR AHMED, IFL TV,
Oh, there he is.
Key Global. Yeah, go on, Adam, come in. Come in. I thought you were saying see you later to us.
Alright.
Come in.
Yeah, so the...
So you was telling me, well, when Joe fought Stavern before that, Ruiz was put forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was, and you know, we want really good opponents for Joe, and we thought Stavern was better, former world champion. You know, Andy Ruiz seems like a really terrific, nice guy, but we wanted better names than that on Joe's CV.
So are you telling me that Ruiz wasn't really good enough for Joyce?
I think whenever Joe fights anyone, we're always very conscious of the public perception of, oh, he's going to knock out another thing, you know, this person's rubbish, they're this. And when you look at Andy Ruiz, like you look at him, it doesn't look physically impressive, and then, you know, Joe becomes in a no-win situation. He knocks out a big fat guy. So,
Or a small fat guy.
or a small fat guy. So you take everything into account. And we just took it into account and thought Stavern, former WBC world champion, it's a better bet. Not to take anything away from Andy Ruiz, terrific boxer, but it's about lots more than just whether or not someone's good. It was a bit that fight is a bit lose-lose for Joe. Would have been a bit lose-lose. Like, oh, you just knocked out a small fat guy.
Yeah, what bully.
Joe, of course, that Joshua fight was also on your radar. You were deemed not credible enough. Now, when you were watching that, I'm guessing you watched that live, or did you watch it the next day?
Yeah, no, I watched it live. Yeah,
Okay, when you were watching that live, was there any part of you thinking, if that was me in Andy Ruiz's shoes, I'd be doing the same to Joshua on that night?
Yeah, I mean, we did ask for that fight, and imagine like if winning all them belts. That's you know, that's what I want to do. Like, be unified and.
I bet Jarrell Miller was thinking that too.
Oh, he must be kicking himself.
I bet Jarrell Miller was thinking that.
We've seen lots of shocks in the past in heavyweight boxing, but the majority of the time they've been like a one-punch KO, a stunner, let's say. This was obviously a beaten up. He got
like
put on the deck four times.
times.
Did that sort of element surprise you?
Yeah, I was just shocked. I was speechless. I even watched I was even watching the interviews at the end, just like with my jaw on the table like this.
He obviously dropped Ruiz in the third round. What were you thinking at that point when Ruiz got put on the floor?
Yeah, I was thinking, because I was going to make a bet for round 4, just to stop him, knock him out or whatever. But then I was like, whoa, okay, maybe it's going to be round 3, and then next thing you know, he's on the deck, and then he gets up, and then he's on the deck again. So yeah.
Eddie Hearn put out yesterday that rematch is going to happen in the UK.
Probably hit O2 now.
I think you'll go to a stadium, won't
They
it?
could do Wembley, couldn't they?
Wembley, yeah.
Or the Millennium, whatever. Yeah.
Huge fight.
Who do you like in that rematch?
I liked how he was, very defensive. Ruiz, I'm talking about, and coming back with like loads of counters, and he was very quick and explosive. And I guess he's quite awkward for Joshua because he's quite a small guy, but he's got very fast hands, and he's not afraid. He's not afraid of Joshua's power, and he was just, he's calm under pressure and managed, and he's, his counters, and he's very smart in the ring.
You picking him in the rematch then, Andy Ruiz?
Oh yeah, it could be, but I don't know. I'm sure Joshua will be in a more, because he's very competitive, and he'll probably up his game even more. And but yeah, it could. It's very awkward. Maybe it's just Joshua's kryptonite. I don't know, or maybe it was a bad day. You never know.
Just before we come on to Jennings, Adam, I want to ask you something as a manager. We was just discussing it off camera. Obviously, Eddie's put out this rematch is going to happen, etc. But you're saying it doesn't necessarily have to happen, even if it's in the contract.
It's in the contract, and so if it doesn't happen, it's a breach of contract. But you could think that someone might say, okay, well, why don't I just breach the contract, come up with some kind of spurious reason as to why I breached the contract, because you didn't do this, because you didn't do that. And then Ruiz fights Wilder, and then PBC have all the belts. And then Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua are left with a lawsuit against Andy Ruiz or PBC. They won't be able to stop Ruiz fighting Wilder. They won't be able to force Ruiz into a ring with Joshua. That courts don't allow you to do that. So it might be a kind of tactic. I think there's a lot of honour though. There's a lot of honour. I think AHMED is actually quite an honourable guy, and I think they will honour the rematch. But if they were being kind of sneaky and cunning, they could just take the belts and say, okay, you're left with a lawsuit. I've got all the belts.
Well, that's an undisputed fight, Ruiz and Wilder.
Undisputed
So.
fight. And they'll keep their 200 million, and you can have your lawsuit. Trying to rely on, and you know, lawyers can come up with any old stuff to try and explain why they haven't honoured the rematch clause. You know, they might say it's an agreement to agree, and under English law that's not valid. There's loads of reasons, especially American lawyers, can come up with. That might be a tactic.
I think some of the belts are going to shake free anyway. Like I think the IBF.
Nathan just told me that actually they're going to strip Ruiz. Or something?
Apparently they're likely to strip Ruiz, so we'll see. I mean, and then again, you're right.
But I mean, that's great news for guys like us because we could go and scoop up them belts.
Exactly. Before we think about that though, you've got Brian Jennings, July 13th. Just tell me about that fight.
Yeah, it's a great fight. He's a great name, and it's going to be a challenging fight. You know, he's got long arms. He's quite awkward and he's very experienced. And he's only lost to the top guys like Klitschko and Rivas and who's the other guy?
Klitschko,
Rivas,
and one other.
He's lost 3, has he?
Yeah, he's lost 3. Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, great record. So
he can punch a bit as well, Brian
he
Jennings.
can punch. Yeah. So I'm
very good opponent.
I mean, I'm feeling good and ready now. I'm feeling fit. I didn't have much time off after Ustinov fight, and so I've hit the ground running, and I'm going to start sparring the end of this week. And yeah, I've been learning some more stuff on pads and stuff with Adam and Chris Oka and the team there. So it's looking good. I'm going to be in a good place come July 13th. I'll be flying.
Were you pleased with the Ustinov performance?
Yeah, Ustinov is quite an awkward guy. He's very experienced and he's a big man, big strong man. So he's quite awkward to hit. But yeah, I obviously got to him with that big left hook.
All right, Joe. I appreciate your thoughts on the weekend's events and your upcoming fight against Brian Jennings. Adam, appreciate your insight as well.
Thanks,
Sam, what are you doing?
Why have you done that to me? How do you do that? Fucking arseholes.
You're going to sleep.